I love the way the powers that be keep sending sirens around the flat. Although, when I'm not the one having panic attacks and I'm not the one having meltdowns. But anyway, I don't know when today I pursued one of my interests again, one of my favourite interests again. Partly because I didn't have any exercise today, apart from walking into town. But yeah, I don't know when I'm doing that. Whether I'm supposed to freak out and start running around the flat shouting beautiful and then them coming out with Bernard Matthews turkeys and so on and so forth. Something like that had happened. But anyway, I'm not interested. But yeah, it is starting to look more and more as if I'm heading back towards the type of existence I had for about 4 years preceding my direct involvement with psychiatric services. And that possibly was the way it was always going to go. Seems that way to me now. Like I've said enough. I've said enough in the past to make that apparent. What my thinking is on that. But anyway, I will say the Tesco delivery guy the other day, on the basis of something insignificant, had a bit of a meltdown. One of the girls down the coffee shop today had a bit of a meltdown. I did say in advance it looked like that place was being prepared for that type of scenario. But anyway, she had a bit of a meltdown on the basis of something insignificant. And that is sort of the way it's always going to go. And that is sort of the proof of the pudding is in the eating, I suppose. If I went back to the media, it'd be a rehash of all that kind of thing. I'm just not interested anymore. But it is good to have this rehash stuff and this denouement fever. It may not last long. The powers that be may just throw their hands up in the air and say, we can't do anything. And I'd say, well, yeah, you can't. The fact that this is like a broken record, the fact that it's rerun fever, the fact that it's denouement fever, the fact that they always default to the original architects and the amalgam, the way that's always going to work out eventually, partly because of the levels of suspicion, partly because of the hypervigilance and so on, so many other things, partly the way I perform, the way I go on sometimes, the way people who are busting into town and people from the town go on as well. And so it's all a bit of a song and dance, isn't it? But anyway, it looks like I'm going back to those 4 years. I don't know whether I'm supposed to go running around town, shaking people's hands and kissing babies or whatever. Not particularly interested in that myself. But anyway, it does look like I've got to start preparing a strategy for going back to the type of living that I had for those 4 years, where I'm pretty much on my own. My mum won't be around, but the conversation with other people will tend to be dominated by some bullshit drama, and that's the way it's going to be. And like I say, that really is the way it was always going to be, wasn't it? Now everyone can surely look at the way things go, the way things tend to go, and just say, well, this ain't ever going to work. Like I said in I think it was my last video, if a relationship is that broken, you just leave it. What is the point in trying to rehash a relationships that just don't work? That is a really commonsensical conclusion to reach. The type of things I say in these videos do help me out. They are good for me to go over. it's just about the only media that's worth me investing time in these days. The rest of it is just a bit of a mess, to say the least. And attempting to rehash things that would only lead to more of this broken record that they just can't change, and attempts at this and that and everything that never work out. Like I said, if a relationship is shit, you just move on. Now, for me, moving on, it looks like I'm heading to the type of existence I had for those 4 years, which I pretty much enjoyed most of the time. And developing a strategy to live like that. The impression is now being given, whether that impression is accurate or not, I don't yet know, that I will face isolation. If that's the case, all it is more people doing the same type of stuff that other people did years ago. So there's no real difference in the approach. It's just more people involved in it. No big difference. There will be probably no telly that I would have watched. There probably will be minimal internet, if any internet. Probably no books, because it'll just be like reading the same old books, like watching the same old telly, reruns, rehash stuff. That because it's rehashed, because it's reruns, have served a purpose, but they do get beyond the point of boring after a bit. Like with people having panic attacks and meltdowns, it does get boring after a bit. Like with the Tesco delivery guy the other day, like with the girl down the coffee shop, both people having meltdowns for a bit about pretty insignificant things. But this is the way it always was. For example, a lot of the time with people in psychiatry, where they were really dramatic, and it was just like I'd sit there and think, "What the fuck is going on?" That's just the way it is. It will, it should now seem obvious to everyone. This is the way it's always going to go. I would argue people will always default to the amalgam and the original architects. That's the way it's going to be, despite all the efforts that have been made. And a sense of obligation and a guilt trip that I should make the effort and all that is all well and good. But if we all know it ain't really going to get anywhere, then surely it's time to admit, everyone, to actually admit, this ain't going anywhere. It's never going to go anywhere. It's time to move on. For me, like I say, that means probably means isolation and developing a strategy around that. Occasionally going into town, occasionally speaking to people, despite the fact that they're going to come out with the dramas and stuff, and just, working around that. If I do speak with anyone, obviously if I go downtown, I'll have my coffee or whatever, if I go for coffee. On the few, I don't go into town all the time. But yeah, it's like denouement fever and rehash fever and rerun fever. I saw it all at the hospital so many times and they'd resolve it, and then they'd rehash it again. And it's just like, don't you people ever fuck. But when I made the effort, I decided, well, hang on a sec, I've got to change my strategy here. When I made the effort with them, the level, and there was some really good people there, but the level of suspicion was so high that it was, and that is, just the way it is. So, yeah. So maybe my strategy, the strategy I developed of no hope, no despair, no love, no hate, no mom, no dad, no blue, no red, no black, no white, and so on. Which is, to me, is like more sane than this stuff I sometimes see out there, but which ain't a big deal anymore. Because it's been rerun so many times because I've seen so much Dana Moore fever. But like I say, it does, the suggestions have started to filter through about isolation. Well, if that happens, so be it. Now, people will still advertise certain things, certain, like family and so on and so forth, which I've got nothing against, but it is a bit of a drag when people are, it's like, again, like that like Little Big Man, the film Little Big Man, that scenario I pointed out. But that's the way it is. And, it's just a case of me developing a strategy now around that. And trying to scale back my performances despite the amount of performances that go on in town. Because they're not really needed. I don't really need, nothing major happened in town. But maybe just scale that back, start to scale that back a bit. But yeah, well, after my pursuing one of my interests, the same old druggings took place. The same type of druggings took place. Stuff goes on in the environment now that I don't really pay much attention to, if at all. That's just taken place. That does, like I've said, it's a natural process. But anyway, message of this video, looks like I'm in back to those, to a type of existence I had for those 4 years. The only differentiating factor, really, in real terms, is my mum won't be around. Apart from that, I can't see much difference, except more people. That's about it. So yeah, just Leisurely Jace pretty much better become Leisurely Jace and back to normal once and for all. It'll happen eventually.